So Internet, today we're going to talk about how to solve right triangles, and we're going to use inverse trigonometric functions to do that today. So if you know the sine, cosine, or tangent of an acute angle measure, you can use inverse trigonometric functions to find the measure of the actual angle. So we use sine, cosine, and tangent to find a side. We use inverse sine, cosine, and tangent to find a angle, okay? So pause. So what you're going to do with all of these guys is you're actually going to push the second in cosine. If you look above it, it says cosine -1. Same way with sine and tangent, okay? So what I want you guys to do right now is with your calculators, make sure, first of all, they're in degree mode. So go to mode to make sure they're in degree mode. And then I want you to do second cosine of 0.87. And that's going to give you an angle measure. And what we're going to do is we're going to round these to the nearest degree. Okay, so when I did that, I noticed it was 29.5. So it's telling us to round it to the nearest degree. So I'm going to round it to 30 degrees. Because obviously the 0.5 is going to round the 9 up to the next number. Okay, so let's do the next one. Second sine of 0.85. When you did that, you got 58.2, but again, we're going to round it to the nearest degree, so that's going to be 58 degrees, okay? Last one, the inverse tangent of 0.71, so this is going to be, again, second tangent of 0.71. Now, this time when you get on your calculator, you got 35.4, so again, that's going to round down to 35, okay? Remember, if it's 5 or above, you're going to round up. If it's 4 or below, you're going to keep it what it is. All right, do these U-tries and come back to me when you're done. All right, so what I got for these was 37 degrees. I got 87 for the cosine, inverse cosine of 0.05. And then for the inverse sine of 0.67, I got 42 degrees. Okay? All right, now we're going to use these. So now it says, using given measures to find unknown angle measures or side lengths of a triangle is known as solving a triangle. To solve right triangle, you need to know 2 side lengths or 1 side length and an acute angle measure. So solving the right triangles, when given 2 sides, we're going to find the ST, angle R and angle MT, round the lengths to the nearest hundredth and angle measures to the nearest tenth. Okay, that's what it says. So the first thing I'm going to do is by Pythagorean theorem, I'm going to solve for ST. So it's asking us for ST first, and I'm going to put an X here. So we're going to, if you remember, we always label the hypotenuse first. So go ahead and label the hypotenuse. So we know that this is going to be our C, right, y'all? Because that's our hypotenuse. So we're going to go X squared plus 5 squared and set that equal to our 5.7 squared. So 25, obviously. So we got X squared plus 25. Is going to be equal to 32.47. We're going to subtract the 25 from the 32.47. So that's going to give us x squared is equal to 7.49. Then we're going to take square root of both sides, if you recall. So our x here is going to be equal to 2 and it says to round to the nearest hundredth, so that's 7.4. Okay? So that's what ST is equal to in this problem. Then it says to find the measure of angle R and the measure of angle T. So to do this, we're going to use some ratios. So let's just start with angle R, okay? So we could use any ratio we want because we have now all 3 sides, but I would always use what we're given. So notice that 5 is the adjacent side to angle R, right? So if we look at adjacent and hypotenuse, that's going to be the cosine, right? So we're going to use cosine here. So if we're finding the measure of angle R, we're going to do the inverse cosine to the -1 of our ratio, which is, again, 5 over 5.7. So you can put that in the calculator just like that. Second cosine, 5 divided by 5.7. And when you did that, you should have got 28.7 degrees, okay? So now, if this angle up here is 28.7 degrees, then we can actually subtract that from 90 and get, so we could, to get the measure of angle T, we could go 90 minus 28.7, and that equals 61.3. Now that's one way to find it, or we can do exactly the same thing we did before. So this time, we're now talking about angle T, right? So if we're talking about the measure of angle T, then what do we have? What is the relationship? We have now opposite and hypotenuse, right? So this would be opposite over hypotenuse. So that's going to be sine, right? So to find that, we're going to do the sine, the inverse sine of, again, the 5 over the 5.7. And when we do that in the calculator, we get 61.3, which is what we already found. So when you're looking for the third side, you can use either method, okay? Subtract this, or not side angle, sorry. Remember, these two angles have to add up to be 90 because we already used 90 there. So now I'd like you guys to do the U-try and come back to me when you're done, okay? So first of all, it asks us to find FH, so we're going to put our X there. That's what we're going to be looking for, okay? So once again, we have, and this is also our hypotenuse, isn't it? Which is also our C. So we're going to go 8.2 squared plus 4 squared, and that's going to be equal to our X squared. So when I do 8.2 squared plus 4.2 squared, I got 83.42, and that's equal to X squared. So we're going to take square root of both sides again. So that's going to give us for X our 9.12. And that's what our FH is equal to, right? Okay. Then we're going to find angle. So let's go ahead and just find the measure of angle F first. So the measure of angle F is going to be equal to, so let's look and see what we have. We have the opposite and we have the adjacent. So isn't that tangent? So opposite and adjacent. So we're going to do the tangent, the inverse tangent of that 4 divided by that 8.2. And when we do that in the calculator, we get 26 degrees. And that was actually a whole number. Now remember, to get the last angle, the angle H, you could go, the measure of angle H is equal to 90 minus 26, which equals 64, right? Or you can again use the ratio, right? So when we're looking at H, we're going to find the measure of angle H with the tangent again. So that's going to be the tan minus 1 of what? 8.2 over 4, okay? So that would have still given us 64 degrees. It doesn't matter which way you do it. All right, so on this next one, it says solving right triangles. Given angle 1 and side 1, find EF, DF, and the measure of D. So here we go again. So this time we're only given one side measure, okay? So that means, first of all, we need to find EF and DF, right? So if it's asking us to find EF first, and we're looking at this 58 degrees, and this is going to be our opposite, and this is going to be our adjacent, right? So that's going to be equal to our A. So what ratio is opposite and adjacent? Tangent, you're right. So we're going to say the tangent of 58 degrees is going to be equal to opposite 14 over our X, right? Remember, we're going to swap the tan 58 and the X, so it's going to be X is equal to 14 divided by the tangent of 58. And you can do that right there in your calculator. And when you do that, you're going to get 8.75. So that is what EF is equal to, right? So then if we want to find the third side, we can do A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? So this is our C because that's our hypotenuse, right? So we're going to go 14 squared plus our 8.75 squared and set that equal to our FD squared or C squared, whichever you want to do. And so when I did that, when I did 14 squared plus, that's supposed to be a plus, y'all, 8.75 squared, I got 272.5625, blah, blah, blah. And that equals our FD squared. So what I did in my calculator is I just went ahead and took the square root of that. So I take the square root of this, and when I did that for FD, I got that it was equal to 12.52, okay? So now that is FD, DF, whatever. I'm going to actually make it exactly the same as it is in the problem, so it says DF, okay? So when we do that, we've got our two sides. Now we need to find our third angle. Now, obviously, the third angle this time is a little bit easier because we have two angles, right? So to find the measure of angle D, we're just going to take 90 minus the 58. And that means the measure of angle D is going to be equal to 32 degrees. So we've solved for everything they asked us for, right? So there's our EF, there's our DF, and there's our measure of angle D. All right, let's see if you guys can do this one at the bottom and come back to me when you're done. So again, if we're looking for AB and we have this angle right here, that's opposite, and AB is our hypotenuse, right? So we're going to go x here, and that's equal to our hypotenuse. So what ratio are we going to use? Opposite and hypotenuse. So that's going to be sine of our 53 is going to be equal to 10 over x. Again, remember that you can swap the sine 53 and the x. So this is going to be x equals 10 divided by the sine of 53. Put that right in your calculator, okay? And it will do all the work for you. And so when I did that for AB, I got 12.52, okay? So now we can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? Okay. So we can, remember this is also our c, right? So we can say 10 squared plus ac squared is equal to the 12.52 squared, right? Okay, so when we do that, so obviously 10 squared is 100, so that's plus our AC squared, and that's equal to, if you do 12.52 squared, that's going to give me 156.7504. We're going to subtract 100 from that. It's a plus sign, y'all. Sorry. Plus sign right there. Okay. So that's going to give us AC squared is equal to 56.7504. So then take the square root of both sides of that, right? So that's going to give me my AC is going to be equal to 7.54, okay? Now, we need to find the other angle. This is easy, right? Because we're going to go 90. So the measure of angle B is equal to 90 minus 53. So that is 37 degrees. Okay? Now we're going to do a couple word problems. It says, a highway sign warns that a section of the road ahead has a 7% grade. To the nearest degree, what does the angle the road make with the horizontal line? So basically, 7% is 7 over 100. So we're going to change the percent to a fraction. That's what we did. Okay, so 7% grade means the road rises 7 feet for every 100 feet horizontal distance. So we're going 7 over 100, right? So then it's asking us, what is this angle right here? It's asking us for this angle, right? So to find an angle, we're going to do an inverse. So this would be our opposite, right? And this would be our adjacent because that's our hypotenuse, okay? So that means we're going to use tangent, right? So we're going to do the inverse tan of the opposite over the adjacent. We're just going to put that right in our calculator, okay? So second tan of 7 over 100, and that's equal to 4 degrees, okay? Now I want to see if you guys can figure out this next one by yourself. So come back to me when you're done. So this next one says, Baldwin St. in Dunedin, New Zealand is the steepest street in the world. It has a grade of 38%. To the nearest degree, what angle does Baldwin Street make with a horizontal line? So this time, we're going to have our 38 over our 100, right? So that means we're still going to do tangent because it's asking us for that angle, right? So this again, this is our hypotenuse, this is our opposite, this is our adjacent, right? So that means we're going to do the tan to the negative 1 of 38 over 100. Put that in your calculator, and when you do, you get that that's a 21 degree angle, okay?